Welcome to Scrappy, Hound of Jolt. As far as our opening hand goes, yeah, this looks pretty good. Yeah, this is really good now that I think about it. Pure Steel Paladin, yes, we're going to keep on this one in a heartbeat, and I'll kind of tell you what we got going on with this deck. And yes, it is not Isamaru, it is Scrappy for today's deck. And hopefully our opponent doesn't have to mulligan past 5 or not. That would not be too good for them. There we go, all right. Always hate that if you end up with a really bad hand. But yeah, let's go and cover our commander. So we're playing Scrappy, and that's just going to be a vanilla 2/2, where we're going to get some really good commander damage going. Let's go and go for planes and get down old Scrappy, and that's going to be 1 white mana. Then anything else, we're going to go and pass the turn to our opponent. Playing against Raff, flash and flying. You may cast historic spells as though they had flash, and I've played against Raff before, and it is a it's a really interesting deck to play against. It can be pretty good sometimes. I'll get my music turned down just a little bit, because that was, I was recording with music, and then sometimes it gets a little loud, or one song gets loud, and it's really hard for me to kind of get some good commentary going. Let's go for planes. Let's go. So we've got Pure Steel Paladin. Equipment enters the battlefield. I think we want to get that down if we're going to go Dark Steel Plate. So let's go Pure Steel Paladin. We'll get the Human Knight onto the battlefield. Let's go and push in with Scrappy for 2 and knock them down to 28, and we'll be on board for 2 commander damage. And then anything else, kick it back over to our opponent. So we did cover both commanders. Give a quick shout out to MTGOTraders. Be sure to check them out if you want to play Commander, Legacy, or Modern. Check out inkgaming.com. If you click the link down in the description below, that'll kind of put my coupon code into your cart. And I have a Patreon. So if you want to check out the Patreon and you want to support the channel, no pressure to, but if that's something you want to do, it is there. Now, it is officially free time. We can have some fun. I'm going to explain this deck here in a second and why I've been calling this dog Scrappy. Let's go Spirit Mantle. Actually, no, we want to go Dark Steel Plate. Yeah, because we want to be able to cash in a little bit of card draw. So we're going to get down planes. Let's go Dark Steel Plate, and then we're going to put that onto Scrappy. And then once we enter the battlefield, that's going to allow us to draw in an additional card draw. Now, once we do get that Metalcraft online, that will allow us to start equipping some of this stuff. But let's go and push in for 4. I think that'd be pretty good. And then knock them down to 24, and then we're going to go and pass the turn. So, now that it's free time, Scrappy, where I work out in the country, and our neighbors across from our warehouse where I work at, they had a little dog. His name was Scrappy. And before we go with the story, I just want to let you know that Scrappy is no longer with us. So, you know, I just don't want to lead up with the story and have you really happy. And it was something that affected me recently. I think it was around Christmas time, so I've been kind of dealing with it for a little bit. Let's go Void. Let's get Scry going. The Scurry, the Fever, the Insanity. Hero's Blade, yes, we definitely want that on top. Let's go and equip Dark Steel Plate onto Scrappy. There we go. Now with this equip, they might have something in response. Okay, there we go, Indestructible. So now we're pretty much good to go. We could go for Spirit Mantle. Yeah, actually, we probably should have gone for Spirit Mantle. We'll put that on next turn. Let's go and push in with the entire crew. With this Dark Steel Plate, we have an Indestructible dog, which is really cool. But yeah, so was Scrappy. So he was a actually, we'll get down to Ancient Tomb and go for Staff of Nid next turn too. That'll be a little bit extra card draw. So with Scrappy, he was a Rat Terrier or Jack Russell Terrier. I can't remember exactly. I'll put a picture up at some point. That way you can see him, or at least you'll see it in the art. But yeah, he's a little dog. But the cool thing about Scrappy was where I worked, it was my neighbor's dog. He lived at a house. But there was one day where he showed up to work with a tennis ball in his mouth. And I like to throw things. And so he gave me put the tennis ball in front of my feet, and so I chunked it, and he ran and got it and ran exactly right back. And it's kind of like one of those dogs you see in the movie where they just play fetch just nonstop. It was almost like he just had an obsession with playing ball. And I was like, all right, man. And like I have a pretty physically active job, and so there's a lot of warehouses I go to, and I check them out. So he'd always follow me around our particular the property where I work at. And so I just had this little dog buddy that would always follow me around, and we'd play ball and just a whole bunch of different stuff. But what I'm going to do in this video is going to be split gameplay, split Scrappy stories, but and I'll kind of explain a little bit more. So let's go Hero's Blade, because that's going to allow us to cash in an extra card draw. Yeah, I like that. So we go Hero's Blade, and that'll also allow us to go for Spirit Mantle. Activated abilities can't be activated. Yeah, there's not really anything that we're trying to activate. So we're going to go 1/2 off of Ancient Tomb. And we do have to equip. Ooh, now I think, yeah, because we do not have the. We probably should have got down Ancient Den to go for the metal crap, but that's okay. We'll still cash in a card draw. Yes, we're going to use that ability. Ooh, Ethereal Armor. We can actually, now that I think about it, we just go Spirit, Mantle. Yeah, we go Ethereal Armor. That should put us in a position to where we can, get past that -1. There we go, get Ethereal Armor on there. And that first strike will make a difference. And basically, at this point, we can just swing in and go for whatever we want because it's going to be indestructible. All right, it's going to be 2/5 first strike. Do we want to push in a Dovin? That's going to be 3/3. Definitely don't want to swing in with Pure Steel Paladin. Yeah, let's go and swing in a Dovin because that's going to be able to keep Dovin in check. And then next turn we can go for that Hero's Blade and put it onto Scrappy, would be good. So that'll allow us to knock down Dovin. But yeah, so there's one day he just showed up. You know, then that was a few years ago, and then like clockwork, he was like the best employee we had at work. He would show up every single day at 8 o'clock. You know, I'd be in the office, and then we'd hear his paw on the door, and we'd let him in. And I had a little bed behind my desk, and we'd just play ball all day. You know, it was a lot of fun. And the funny thing is we had a real good relationship with the owners across the street, our neighbors at work, and so they just said that was his job because he would show up every single day, 8 o'clock. We'd let him in the office. There's another guy at work that would always stop and get him a biscuit at the gas station. And so I cut it up for him. And so he'd come in and get a biscuit. And and he'd just be my little work dog. He's my 9 to 5 dog. And all right, so we draw into Plains. Let's go Ancient Den. So at this point, we can't go Staff of Nin to start cashing in some card draw. Since we're basically be taking care of Dovin, I kind of like going Staff of Nin because that's going to allow us to at least kind of get some sort of card advantage going. And then either way, we're just going to be trying to take out Dovin, and then we can start swinging in our opponents. So we're going to get down Staff of Nin. It'll also allow us to, once we get down Scrappy and start attacking our opponent's life total, a little bit extra. Arcane Denial. Okay, that's fun. Now let's go and push in with Dovin. And with this Spirit Mantle, it's just really hard for people. That was a really nice draw for us to get. So we are swinging at Dovin. We'll click OK. And it's going to take care of Dovin, and then we'll pass the turn. But yeah, so, he would show up every single day. Then I'd drive him home. He would, all right. So we got Cyclonic Rift. We got ourselves a little bit of a game here. Yeah, I like that. Okay. All right, so it's going to send Scrappy back. We still have some of the equipment on the battlefield. We do have Metalcraft, so that way if we do draw into a few more pieces of equipment, we can hopefully get some more stuff rolling and end up with a really nice Scrappy. But yeah, I'd take him home every day after work. He'd hop in my truck, and we'd drive to his house, and I'd drop him off, and I would say, Scrappy, all right, I'll see you tomorrow morning. And then on Fridays, I would always tell him, hey, it's the weekend. So, don't come to work. But he would still come to work sometimes because, dogs aren't the best at checking calendars. But he would kind of go up there and see that nobody was up in the warehouse, and he knew it was the weekend, so he'd stay at his house. But yeah, he was a really fun dog. And unfortunately, the people that owned him, he lived out in the country, and they subscribed to the notion that, don't want to keep him caged up, don't want to keep him. They had a dog that had a collar, and they've always been people that lived out in the country, and they had a dog that had a collar, and they got hung up on a fence one time, and the dog almost choked to death. And so it's understandable that if you live out in the country, especially with the dog, if you train it to a certain way, you can kind of keep it off its leash. It's not like you live in a suburban area or you live in the city or something like that. So Scrappy was a free dog. His backyard was probably about a 1 mile radius. It was almost kind of like he was the neighborhood dog. And unfortunately, he was ran over. That's kind of what ended up happening, and that happened around Christmas. And so that was really hard for me. That kind of put me into a funk. So if you've noticed that there's been a lack of new decks since Christmas, that was kind of it, because Scrappy was my buddy. I didn't really realize how much of a friend he was to me. And I know that sounds goofy. Let's go ahead and cast Isamaru. Let's get down Scrappy, and let's start rebuilding Scrappy. Yeah, we're definitely going to put Hero's Blade on there. And I love Artificer's Assistant in the Historic deck. It's such a good little card. Let's go Dark Steel Plate. We can actually equip it for 0 thanks to Pure Steel Paladin. Now, we do have a full grip of Plains, so hopefully we can... do we want to sacrifice Buried Ruin? That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... Actually, yeah, that'd be perfect. So, we won't have enough mana, but I think we do want to get that card draw going. So, let's go and return Staff of Nin back to our hand. It's going to be 1, 2... And that way we can get that down next turn, start cashing in some card draw, and really kind of start rebuilding what we've got going on. But yeah, unfortunately that did happen, it was a really sad moment. In fact, I was the one that actually found him, and I had to go across the street and tell the neighbors and stuff like that. And he had just shown up for work, but we don't really live on that where we work. It's not really that busy of a road. It was just Scrappy had this. He wanted to nip at tires on cars, and that was really hard to break. There'd be times where I would be in the work truck and I would get out and I'd say, Scrappy, get in the truck, quit trying to nip at the wheels, the tires. And, he would give that look like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. As soon as I closed the door, he would start doing it. It was one of those habits that I tried so hard to break, and we just couldn't break it from him. It was just, unfortunately, it was one of those habits that a dog just develops. And swinging in for 4, yeah, that's cool. Just one of those habits that he's a country dog. He's just going to do what he wants to do. And so that was, unfortunately, that's ended up what happening. And so, but yeah, I kind of realized that, Scrappy wasn't just a 9 to 5 dog to me. He was, because where I work, we have a couple different warehouses on the same property. So I'm constantly jogging between different warehouses and different things like that. I don't really like to walk. So I always like to, just kind of have a nice little light jog if I've got to go somewhere. And he loved to run, so he would just constantly be at my side and come alongside with me. And yeah, not gonna lie, it was pretty hard whenever that happened because, like, I've got a lot of, college friends, and we stay in contact like that. But it was kind of weird because Scrappy he was actually I considered him a really close friend, if that makes sense. And I don't know. You just see this dog that comes up every single day, and I like him, he likes me. We play ball every single. I mean, there'd be sometimes my arm, like I'm feeling like I'm gonna have Tommy John surgery, like the baseball surgery, because he's playing so much tennis with me, or I'm throwing so much tennis with him, tennis balls, and it was just it was a really fun relationship that we had. And so that was it. Really did feel like I lost a close friend, and I did lose a close friend. Now that, like, as time has gone on and I've thought about it a lot more. So we go 1 2 3 4 Hedron Archive 1 2. That's gonna be 1 2 3 4 5 6. That'll be just enough for Staff of Nin. Yeah, I think that would be good. So we go Hedron Archive, and then we're gonna go for Staff of Nin. All right, so this is going to allow us to get down Staff of Nin. We're going to immediately take care of this Artificer's Assistant. We just don't really want any sort of extra scrying from our opponent. Do we want to push in? No, we're sitting at -1, so we'll just go and pass the turn. And this may end up being more of a commentary video. To be perfectly honest, this is the first time I've recorded with this video. I built this deck back in January, but you can tell that it's been a while since I've actually played it because I don't know, it was the emotional side to it. He was just such a cool dog. It was just the fact that you have this 9 to 5 dog that shows up to work and you get to take him home every single day, and he was nowhere near being an old dog. But it was always a fear of mine that he would get run over one day. And unfortunately, that did happen. But yeah, he was just such a cool dog. We had so many customers that would come up, and that some of them would bring their kids, and they're like, "Where's Scrappy?" And then they play with Scrappy. And the funny thing is our office loved Scrappy to death, and he was very protective of. Yeah, that has flying. Okay, so there's not much we can do about that. Scrappy. He's very protective of our office, and we were very appreciative of that. But if you had some rough-looking dude that came in, or some boots, he would just, well, we called it the drive-by. So he would get up from his bed like he just wants to go outside, and then he would just like speed up really quick and like try to nip at their heel and then just run off. And I'm like, Scrappy, you can't do that. And then he would just run off like, haha, gotcha, can't stop me. So he's a mischievous little dog. But the main reason I'm doing this story is, especially this story in this deck, is I just want to tell the story of Scrappy, man. He was a cool dog. And oh man, we hit another plains. Yeah, let's get some card draw going. Let's go Hedron Archive. We need to get a little bit more action on our side of the battlefield. We just need a few more pieces of equipment. Let's go Strom. And once we get that down, because the game's not over yet, but it's certainly not. We want to try to keep that -7 from happening. That's pretty important to us. Now let's see if they're going to end up going for some sort of counteraction. If they do, yeah, I don't blame them, because getting down the SRAM would be really hard in this stack. Let's go Mind Stone, and so we're looking at 3, 6, 9, 12, and if we tap down Ancient Tomb, that'll certainly be. But we can get, yeah, let's go and get the plains down. And we go Mind Stone, And we'll use that last plains to at least cash in an additional card draw. The good thing about that is Staff of Nin, we can use that to at least keep Dovin in check. So let's go ahead and go for the -1, draw a card. At this point, we're just, all right, another plains. Anything else? We can swing. I'm curious about, you may cast historic spells so that they had flash. With them swinging on Raff, I'm worried we're going to lose Pure Steel Paladin to some sort of flash option. That is only 3 mana, though. Well, we've got Staff of Niven to keep Dovin in check, and the card draw from Pure Steel Paladin. We've drawn a lot of lands already, so hopefully we're due for some sort of a little bit of spell action on our side. But to be honest, you know, Scrappy, you know, a lot of kids, he was so good with kids. You know, then that was a crazy thing. You'd have a little kid come in, we'd get worried about him nipping at the little kid, but he loved little kids. And it just kind of became like a, almost kind of like an office mascot. You know, it just had this really unique relationship with this dog that I didn't own, but he just like really enjoyed us as his second home. And so like, it was even funny because they're Scrappy's owners, they said that on the weekends he would just sit around his house and just pout because we weren't there. And so I don't know, it was just kind of, it's weird when you sit back and you think about the relationships that you develop sometimes. And, you know, even though it's just a dog, you know, always value different relationships like that. And, you know, Scrappy, he lived life to the fullest. I mean, that was, there was some times where, I mean, this isn't like a little foo-foo dog. I mean, you know, this is out in the country. So when it would rain, it gets muddy. If he thought he smelled like a mouse or a squirrel or something, like he would get fixated on digging in a tree. I mean, there are times where this dog is black and white and he would be so muddy, it looks like you just like dropped him in a mud puddle and just rolled him in mud. And then he would just be like cold and wet. Like, man, I tried to find that rat, but I couldn't find it. And you come in and sleep. So this dog is definitely not a foo-foo dog. Like, in fact, there's another time where he got bit by a copperhead. 100%. I mean, he got bit by a copperhead, and we take him across the street, and his face is all swelled up, and they gave him some Benadryl. They called the vet Benadryl and an egg, and then Lavinia of the 10th. Okay, yeah, sure. And then Benadryl and an egg, and then, man, that dog showed up to work the next day. Like, his whole face was swollen. Like, it happened early in the morning. Let's say it happened on a Tuesday. He showed up on Wednesday again, and his little snout was just a little bit swollen. I remember, like, Scrappy, man, you don't have to show up to work today. Come on, man. She got bit by a snake yesterday. But anyway, he showed back up. So that's the kind of dog we're dealing with. A dog that gets bit by a snake and is still good. He's like, I got to go to work. There's some tennis balls to be had. All right, so we're going to go for the Staff of an Inactive. I'm trying to remember if there's any other stories. But yeah, you know, it was just a dog that had full reign of the neighborhood. You know, he was a good dog. I miss him. Not gonna lie, I miss him. But anyway, that's why I built this deck, so that way we can share. I can share some Scrappy stories, and then there's his buddy, Resolute Watchdog. Okay, so we don't run into any sort of card draw. Do we want to push in with can't attack or block? Actually, excuse me, they can't attack or block because of Lavinia. So we get down plains. Yeah, I guess we just go Resolute Watchdog. I'm sorry we're not ending up with a really big Scrappy. You know, unfortunately, you can see how many lands we got. I'm not running in a lot of lands in here, but it's just like 36 or so. And, but sometimes that's how Magic goes. But it's going to allow us to get in a few more Scrappy stories and do that. So another thing that, so his name was Scrappy, but I would call him Stinky sometimes because, you know, like I mentioned, you know, if you're out playing in rain puddles, if you're getting hot, so he would get really hot and then he'd just go, like, especially during the summer. We're in Texas. I'd play tennis with him. I'd throw the ball to him. And then his way of cooling off was just go, like, laying in some, like, a ditch water or creek water, even though we have a little dog pool for him up at the office. But so, I mean, and there's a lot of times where he just stunk, like, really bad. I mean, just imagine just a dog that's been active all day, rolling in mud. They're dirty. It's a black and white dog that almost looks gray. And so I'd have to take him home. And, you know, I didn't mind it. I've still got a few little paw prints where he would hop in the truck and with his muddy paws. And it was funny because this dog, I mean, we've clocked this dog. He could run 20 miles an hour. I think his top was about 22 miles an hour. And so, one of the funny things is that, like, he was a super active dog. He played ball all day. And when it came time to go home, he'd be like, Scrappy's time to go home. And he would walk so slow. He would walk like his back leg is about to give out. He would walk like he's a 15-year-old dog, even though he was like 3 or 4. And he would just walk so slow to my truck and get in. I remember thinking like, well, I understand, buddy. You don't want to go home, but you got to go home. Work's over. So, but anyway, he was a really close friend of mine, and I'm glad I got to share a story with you. It looks like we're going to unfortunately get a little bit flooded out on planes, but I'm going to be recording more with this deck in the future for sure, and I'm glad I got to tell the initial. In fact, this is kind of good that it kind of went out this way because we can, or it played out this way because I got to tell you a little bit more about Scrappy. But yeah, he was a really close friend of mine, and if I've been rambling or kind of repeating, it's a little still hard for me to kind of talk about it. I'm trying not to. Um, yeah, not to get emotional about it, but yeah, he was a good little dog, man. So if you ever have any dogs in your life or anything like that, make sure you always take them for that extra walk, and yeah, just little things like that. So we got the Staff of Nin activation. Okay, so we get Staff of Nin. Sorry about that. Let's take a quick break real quick. So we definitely do have Metalcraft online. And activated abilities can't be activated. So let's go for an Inventor's Fair. Now, we did rip into Swordsmith. It enters the battlefield and you pay X if you do search your library for an equipment card. So this might kind of finally allow us to break free just a little bit. So let's go for, with Inventor's Fair, it's just going to be straight up 4 mana. So let's go for Inventor's Fair first. We're going to search for an artifact card. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll see what we're going to grab. I'm pretty sure, now we are open to counter magic. They've got 3 cards in their hand. Let's go and get this popped out. Sword of Fire and Ice, Feast and Famine. It's going to be black and green. War and Peace is going to be text from red and white. I guess we're kind of in a position now to where we just need to go for Sword of War and Peace. That's going to be one. Yeah, we have enough to equip. Another option we can go for with the Swordsmith is definitely going for Trailblazer's Boots. That would allow us to find another piece. But I think at this point, if we're trying to go protection, I think Sword of War and Peace is going to give us the best bet. And then with all the planes in our hand, we're definitely going to be able to maybe try to cash in some card draw. So do we want to get down Mana Crypt? That's going to be real risky. I'd hate to lose to... No, yeah, we'll go ahead and go for it. Let's go Sword of War and Peace. Yeah, because either way, we're going to have to tap. So let's get down Mana Crypt. But we're in a position where we need to be pretty aggressive with this. So we're going to go Mana Crypt, and let's go Sword of War and Peace. Let's go Sword of War and Peace. That's going to be 1, 2. And we can still use the 2 mana. That way we're not taking 2 damage off Ancient Tomb. We're still leaving us open to Mana Crypt, but it's just kind of one of those. It is what it is. We're trying to... yes, we're going to use that ability. Cash in a card, draw Sun Titan, okay. And let's go for the equip of Sword of War and Peace onto Scrappy. Now, hopefully this sticks. All right, there we go. So that's going to put us at 1, 6. And then with the Swordsmith, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we're going to have to wait until next turn for the Swordsmith. So let's go and push in with Scrappy. All right, so they will end up forcing us to swing in. Unfortunately, the Resolute Watchdog, he can't swing in. He's just a little defender dog. But Pure Steel Paladin's going to be going to have to swing in. So we're going to lose that card draw. So they are making us swing in. They are tapping down with Improvise. So let's see what they're actually casting. That's going to be Bard. All right, so that's going to force us to kind of tap down a little bit of our mana. We do have the mana available for that, so it's really not the end of the world. But I think at this point, they're trying to force some sort of alpha swing from us. We might have to get down the Swordsmith. We'll kind of see. Let's go and push in with Scrappy. We need to deal that damage to our opponent to get the trigger from that. So we're going to go and swing in for 1, 6. And we're going to pay 2 to declare these attackers. Yes, we're going to do that. And then thankfully, that's going to give us just a little bit of life gain off of Scrappy too with that Sword of War and Peace. And then next turn, we can figure out what we're going to do with Swordsmith. Now, we do have Sun Titan in the hand, so we can grab Inventor's Fair. And that allows us to kind of grab a few more pieces of equipment. So, all right, so we're going to lose Mr. Pure Steel Paladin, unfortunately. Man, it would have been nice. When you have Pure Steel Paladin and you have Srom on the battlefield at the same time, it is... That's some good magic right there. Okay. All right, so we've got Scrappy swinging in for 1. That's going to knock them down to 24. And then we're going to gain... we're going to go back up to 15. And then we'll see what... We still have a Staff of Nin activation to go for, too. So we're going to go ahead and pop I guess either way, I guess maybe technically we should have gone for the Dovin, because then go for that -7. Let me think about that with the Oath of Teferi out there. Yeah, because they can activate it twice. So let's do this. Let's go Staff of Nin on Dovin. That's going to force the Dovin activation, but either way, you know, since we kind of ran into a bunch of lands and it was kind of a little bit more story time, maybe could have been a little bit aggressive with that one, but a little bit differently. But like I mentioned, we're going to be playing this deck in the future for many years to come. I always enjoy playing, kind of like big aura decks. You know, obviously you can tell I've got the Gitrog Monster. There's a lot of different enchantment builds I like to go for. And so this is something we're definitely going to keep in the future. And it's always nice to have some sort of home for, you know, brand new weapons that we get or brand new enchantments that we have, especially mono white ones. And playing a mono white deck, it's always a really hard thing to do. All right, so now we do have, we've got a, we got the, what is that card? So we got a Winter Orb on the battlefield with Dovin. I couldn't remember the name of it because they banned it, which was rightfully so. They should have banned it. But all right, so they're going to be swinging in with the entire crew. That's going to be 3/7. That's going to be 9. I guess we let that go through. I mean, we can block on one of these creatures, but either way, that's going to be 9. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah. We're just going to go ahead and leave the Watchdog, just in case there's some sort of, I don't know, we need to go for. Now, that does put us in a position to where we're going to be able to get in for a decent chunk of damage with Scrappy next turn. That's going to give us another Sword of War and Peace. But with this untapped trigger, only 2 permanents, it's going to be really hard for us to kind of bounce back from that, even if we wanted to go for something like the Swordsmith line of play. So we'll see what we rip into, but it's going to be a little bit hard. All right, then our opponent's going to go for Return to Dust on Staff in that, so that's pretty much going to be a good game. But maybe we'll see what we draw into, but it's going to be hard to bounce back from that. But we did get off to a pretty nice start. Ethereal Armor and Spirit Mantle; those are really hard cards to deal with, especially when you're running a Voltron package like this. So. All right, our opponent did go for a -6 with Tezzeret, so that's going to put Staff of Nin on the battlefield. All right, so we're going to untap 2 permanents like a like a peasant, and then we're going to go for, let's see if we hit the Mana Crypt trigger or not. Either way, our opponent's got it on this one. So this last turn, they used Tezzeret -6 to get down Staff of Nin or Reflector Mage. I'm going to choose Tails, lost the foot. That's going to put us down to 1, and that's going to leave us dead to a Staff of Nin activation. In fact, yeah, we'll just go and scoop it up on this one. That way, our opponent, good game by our opponent. It's always fun to play against, you know. I'm always worried about playing a, you know, Voltron deck like this, especially a really quick one that you're going to put some quick games, but you can see that this is a pretty long game. We had some good story time. Might have been able to play that game a little bit tighter, but, you know, especially for the first deck, I wanted to explain the story behind the deck. So that way you get to kind of know going forward, we get to root for Scrappy and you can, yeah, just really enjoy the story of him because he was a really cool dog to know. You know, at the end of the day, if I ever get sad about it or I think about him not being here anymore, I always think about the time that we had together, and I would not trade that for the world because that was such a cool dog. He lived life to the fullest, and he really kind of showed me that, you know, just, hey, get out there, have some fun. So anyway, if you got any pets, make sure you take them for an extra walk, especially if you got a dog or a cat, give them an extra pet for me. And if you got a tennis ball, hey, give them to your dog for Scrappy. He would certainly appreciate that. So if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.